Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Sinkoff. I'm the academic director of the Alan and Joan Bildner Center for the Study of Jewish Life and professor of Jewish Studies and History here at Rutgers. It gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you to this particular webinar conversation with the director Chen Shelach on his film Muranow. And I just want to say that the Polish way, because as some of you know, my field of expertise is the Jews of Poland. So this film grabbed me immediately, and I will be pronouncing it the Polish way, which is Muranow, even though I think for many people, they will pronounce it Muranow, which is completely fair, but I can't help but pronounce it the way that I know the language requires, which is Muranow. This is an incredibly interesting, challenging, serious film about memory, about how memory is constructed, about national trauma, about displacement, and about the burdens of the past. And all of those themes, though specific to this region, that is Warsaw and the neighborhood Muranow, which was densely populated by Jews. These are universal themes that affect every location in the world because history is layered, the human condition is layered, and we all have very selective memories of the past. So I look forward to engaging the audience and particularly our director, Chen Shelach, on these themes in a series of questions and with the conversation that follows. So let me introduce Chen Shelach, who's on the screen with me. Israeli filmmaker Chen Shelach is the screenwriter, director, and editor of Muranow. This is his film in every way. He has produced many other films, and including the documentary Partner with the Enemy, which we screened here at Rutgers at our Jewish Film Festival in 2016. The theme of that documentary is about an Israeli and Palestinian women who join forces to build a business. He was also the director of a film called Praise the Lard, which is a 2016 documentary about basar lavan, white meat. That is the pork industry in contemporary Israel, which is an extremely interesting topic because of the nature of land ownership in Israel, which is state-owned in many cases, and pork is at least officially forbidden. But that is not what we're talking about today, but look it up on his film database. So thank you, Chen. I'm so happy to see you and converse with you about this film. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, given the fact that you have such a wide range in your filmography, the starting point question is, how did you get involved with this particular subject? What drew you to Muranow and to Jewish Warsaw?
Mm-hmm. You know, every film is something is happening that's taking you from one place to another. And you were talking about Partner with the Enemy, the film about the two women. And almost all my films are dealing with my close friends, family, and so on. The Israeli woman from the Partner with the Enemy is my wife. So everything, and Praise the Lard, it's about the pork industry that started in my kibbutz where I live in Mizrah. And so everything has to be in some way attached to my life. And I was getting into Warsaw to screen at Praise the Lard in a film festival. And they were telling me to come to Muranow, Kino Muranow, which I didn't know nothing about it.
Right.
And then in the last day of the festival, there was a tour for the directors that was visiting the festival, and it was started in the Umschlagplatz, the place where the trains were going to Treblinka. And the guide wasn't an Israeli, she was Polish. And we were standing near a building that she told us that is one from 3 buildings that's left from the old neighborhood. And the building was standing here near him. He was survived the war, the building, because he was this headquarter in Warsaw Ghetto. And I asked her, what is it today? And she said, this is the Faculty of Psychology of the Warsaw University today. And I just was curious, and I asked her, how is it to be a student? How is it to teach in this place where it was, you know, the heart of the evil? And she was telling me something about students, they're talking about white flashes that's coming to them here and then, and she was talking about some Jewish ghost that's people in this neighborhood talking about, that's living with Jewish ghosts. And I never heard about it before. I'm an Israeli, I'm a Jewish. My mother was born a few kilometers from there in a small town called Vyshkov, where Mordechai Milevich also came from. And I just came back to Israel, and I couldn't, like the ghost of Muranow, you know, hunt me. And I started to learn everything I can learn about it. And then something strange happened also. That's my uncle, he was more than 90 years old, called me and wanted me to, let's talk about our family that's left. And they were never talking about it before. And I started to record the conversation. It was funny because they didn't remember anything. It was too late.
Right.
But the story of my family is very, this was the point that I started to realize that I should do it. Because my grandfather was living in Vyshkov. And on the 1st of September 39, when my mother was like 4 months old, he got, on the first day of the war, he disappeared, and we don't know nothing about what really happened to him. We just got a letter that he was murdered, that he was died, of course. So then I thought that if it's a ghost that's going in Muranow, which was the heart of the Jewish Warsaw, where more than 2,000 Jewish lived there, nothing left, nothing. So maybe my grandfather is also some kind of metaphoric ghost that's wandering around there. And this is how I came to this story. So it's also from the personal angle, but also from something that I all the time told myself that I will read about it, something, and then I found out that someone made a film of it. And it didn't happen. And then I learned something else, that nobody deal with this. Also, how could it be that nobody deal in it, especially in Israel? I have the answer why I think nobody deal with it, but this was the start point for me.
Yeah. This idea of ghosts, the Yiddish literary critic Ruth Weiss has encapsulated this issue with regard to contemporary Poland. She describes the Jews, the Jewish presence, as a phantom limb, you know, something that is gone, but it aches and it gives you pain, and it forces itself upon you. And I think that's very true in many places of the world, but certainly in Poland, where the Jewish community was a tenth of the population. It dominated urban settings because of the way Jews had to make a living, the prohibitions on owning land in most cases. The Jews were central to modernism. They were central to urban culture. And Warsaw was, again, the second largest Jewish city in the world after World War I. And it was teeming with diversity, Jewish diversity. And as you said, no longer, there's nothing, there's just little teeny remnants. So your sense of being haunted, to me, is so powerful and very understandable. And I think also for many Israelis today of Ashkenazic origin, for all kinds of reasons, your generation is rethinking where did this all happen? What was Europe to us? We can talk more about that, but let's go back to the film. What was your research process? The film is told with a lot of different narratives, documentary footage, contemporary interviews, animations. How did you do the research and how did you come up with the structure of the film?
The first thing I was doing is just to put on Google Muranow plus ghosts. And it was amazed how many reference for the ghosts of Muranow. Also a PhD work that's someone doing these days about this phenomenon. And of course, this was the first thing that took me in this ghost. But after a while, I started to understand that the ghost, it's something that when you handle it with this subject, must be very gentle dealing with it. Not to make this traumatic place and whatever was happening there today, to make it like a mumbo jumbo story. And because it's a little bit too serious. And then I thought that the ghost should be like a metaphor, like the ghost of history. What's happening when you're not dealing with the past, or how do you deal with the past and the ghosts are still hunting you? And when I started to learn about it, I just after maybe 1 month after I found this story for me, the new story for me, like maybe 2 months, I've been to Warsaw, to Muranow back with a crew just to start filming. And I didn't know the people, I didn't know no one, and I was very surprised that people was just coming and talk to me, and I was talking to them, and this was very, very interesting. And the structure, it was for me, when I understood, I looked for a way how to make this ghost or this feeling that something is always live there, that this is the story that's not really ended. And was like, because it's, literally when you dig in Muranow, you'll find whatever you find. We just heard about like 3 weeks ago, there was a funeral for bones that were found during some excavation over there. So I was sure that there was to be like a parallel world, the world that is today and the world that's going under, and still something is happening there. So this is where the animation came. And then I met these people that someone told me about, this historian and animation that's want to build the whole Muranow, the whole Warsaw in 3D dimension. And then, it's just happened. And then we found Peter. Peter, is the one that's making this film about the 1st of September.
Yeah.
And he showed us his work. And I was amazed at what he's doing, and this his dream to live again the big Warsaw before the war, and of course Jewish was the part. And then we start to collaborate, and we told him, maybe you can do for us the last day of normal living in Muranow. And so this was the script for him. And by the way, the names of the people over there in this film, the black and white film, which he's doing now, are the names of my family. So Pesia, the one that's wanted for her children, pencil for tomorrow, for the 1st of September, is my grandmother. And she wanted for 3 kids, like this is my mother and uncle. So this is the way that this has happened. And it wasn't, from the beginning, I was sure that I don't want a narrative film as people used to see it, that something is happening and then you must be the hero going over there and happy ending. It's a story for place.
Yes, I think it's a story or palimpsest is the fancy word in English, of layers upon layers where you can see something below. I think this layers is such, it's not morphological, it's almost biological. It's very apt for what you've done, because Warsaw was leveled, the ghetto area was leveled, in 1943, and then the city as a whole, most of it was leveled after the Warsaw Uprising of 1944. There was just rubble everywhere, and underneath were all of these life experiences, right? And I think that the film really challenges us to think about what's underneath our feet, where we walk everywhere in the world. There's layers of human history. We don't always know it, and it doesn't always bother us, but the recent past, you know, the mid-20th century Jewish past in Europe still bothers anyone who thinks about the Jewish life, because it was so traumatic, it was so catastrophic, it was so final. So I think the layered approach works extremely well. And it's layered both the past and the present for the young people who live in Muranow, who are not responsible for what happened. And they're living with the burden of being young Poles in a beautiful part of the city. And they know something happened. So I wanted to say one other thing about your young filmmakers making August 31st. I personally, as an historian, so appreciated that effort, because so often people say, why didn't the Jews of Poland leave? Why did the Jews of Germany leave? Why didn't the Jews of Lithuania leave? But August 31st, the war had not started. And they were thinking about pencils for their children to take to school, and the baked goods in the bakery that they were going to buy for lunch. And all of us are like that. You live today, you don't live tomorrow. And I think that was, again, a very sensitive way of asking questions about what we don't know about the past and what we don't know about the future. So I'm very gratified about that. And I will teach your film, by the way. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because I teach a course on between Nazism and communism, so it's perfect. But I do have a question. Obviously, a subtext or a leitmotif in the film is the resistance among some Christian Poles to your project. You have many interviewees who are very happy to talk to you, but you also have encountered resistance or skepticism, or in one case, hostility. So how did that unfold, and how did you deal with that as a director and filmmaker?
You know, when at first we had nothing against, we didn't, it was like we are coming into this neighborhood and everybody saying us, welcome, it's great that you are coming, it's a great topic and we want to cooperate. And then we thought, but we're hearing all the time about difficulties, about anti-Semitic, and it couldn't be that this is the truth, that everyone in this neighborhood is happy from this Israeli delegation and to deal with this topic. Because if I was living over there, I think please stop to bother me. I'm living there, my kids going to school. I don't want to think every day about the tragedy that's war there, and which is almost nothing with me. I'm not the one that's caused it and caused it. And so when we start to feel that not everyone is happy from this project, we thought this is good for the project. Yeah. And when we met this guy, we were talking with him, that's one that's saying this fucking Jews, the fucking Jews. And we didn't understand, of course, what he's saying, because I'm not talking Polish. But when someone is threatening you, you can feel it, you don't need to know the language. Right. And Kasha, that was translating for us, told us, let's go from him. Please, let's leave this place. And only the taxi she was telling us what he was saying, what he really was saying. And then we went to the march of the Independence Day. And there you also, this Europe, Poland for the Polish and Europe for the European, you hear this, you get some, I don't know even how to what I really felt when I heard it, because day after it, my wife came. It was very scary. It wasn't nice. It was, a lot of noise. The day after my wife came, I stayed there, and my wife came, and we stayed for 4 or 3 days more, just, you know, for vacation in Warsaw. And I took her to the place where was the march just yesterday, and nothing. Yeah. Peaceful, nice. And then you think all the time about this air. How can you are feeling very safe today? Everything is normal. Where would you be the next day? Yeah. Where would you be? What would have happened? And this is what happened to my family and so many other families. Right. And you were talking before, if I may say it, you were talking about this is the way of the world. This is like in everywhere. I was talking to some, and this is true, of course, I was talking to some urbanic researcher, and he was telling me it's called urbanic triangle. Triangle?
A triangle.
A triangle.
Wait, an urban triangle? Urban triangle?
Yes, urban triangle,
okay, great.
Which is people that's living in the houses and making culture, okay? Most of the places in the world that we know, especially in the modern world and the modern history, we are talking about like one angle that survived from the survive. Like, you know, in Israel, the people here, but they're not living in the houses, but the houses are here, like in somewhere. In Muranow, it was the whole triangle was gone in a second, in the history second, in the way of it's not the same people, it's not the same houses, it's not the same culture, nothing left. And this is what making it one of the most extreme version of this way of the history and people that's living one on another.
Absolutely, absolutely. What remains, ironically, and it's truly ironic, is Okopova, the cemetery, which you and I discussed this. All the times I've been and go to Warsaw, I like to go to Okopova, which, you know, for some people they say, why would you want to go to a cemetery? But the cemetery of Okopova is one of the largest extant Jewish cemeteries in Europe. Ironically, another very important cemetery is in what was formerly East Berlin, an enormous Jewish cemetery that wasn't destroyed. And the reason I like to go to Okopova is that not all, but most of the matzevot, most of the headstones are those of Jews who lived full, natural Jewish lives. There are mass graves there, as the head of the on the bicycle tells us, and there are certain headstones now for victims of the Holocaust who are famous, like Janusz Korczak, the doctor who walked with his orphans and was then murdered. But those are, in fact, a smaller part of the cemetery. The cemetery is vast, and it. So many of the headstones show, again, the diversity. It's not just rabbinic Jews, Jewish writers. Peretz is there, and the great historian Meir Balaban is there, and the founder of Esperanto, Zamenhof, is there. I mean, I could go on, and I won't. So, but that's the irony of Poland, is that the cemeteries remain, but for many American Jews, cemeteries mean death. But ironically, here they actually, it means life, and it's very moving, and you show the cemetery, and I also think that's quite important. Can we talk a little bit about how Poland, and you do use it in the film, how the haunted history and the tragedy of Polish Jewry is used or deployed by Israeli tour groups, and how your film shows that, and your own experience with that? You know, how is this past used, or the usable past deployed by contemporary Israelis?
Well, I think there's two ways of approach in Israel to the Holocaust, of what is the conclusion of the Holocaust. And I think that everybody is agree about that's the thing of no more, never again. But then we should ask ourselves if there should be like another part for this sentence. And this is asking what is the meaning of being a Jewish? of being Jewish after the war. What is it? What do you take from it? Not only the death, the tragedy, but what is the meaning? And when I see this youth delegation that's coming there before they're going to the army, and this huge flags, and the loud music and this dancing, I'm feeling that we are forgetting the second part, which for me is most important. That's to be Jewish after the Holocaust is mean to be in some way humanity.
A humanist.
Humanist, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Don't worry about that.
To be humanist. And it's so important. And it's so easy to forget it.
Yeah.
Because for me, after the Holocaust, it's oxymoron could be a Jewish that sees a racist. That's shugizan. I cannot stand it.
Right. So you're saying, I just want to translate. So you're saying those, and there are people who take the message from the Holocaust is they hated us, we're going to hate back. And we're not going to forgive them. And we're going to march through the streets of Warsaw, asserting with our flags our sovereign national Israeli identity to the exclusion of you. And you're saying this makes you uncomfortable.
Not only for in Warsaw. I am talking also about what is to be an Israeli. Because we are dealing here with another minority.
Right.
And you cannot, you must be somewhere else. And it's important that you will think about the real meaning of being a Jewish after this tragedy. Right. This is, for me, it's the most important thing. And I think that it's very easy for us to go and be, first of all, miskenim, to be poor, to be the one that was attacked all the time. To victimize our way of looking at life, and then to justify our doing in Israel now because of what was happening before.
Right.
And this is wrong, and this is something that we thought in the creator of this film, that this is something that is very important for us to show. And when we came to this Anilevich monument, and there was also, it's American use, it's not even Israeli. And they're talking about the war, the Israeli war, that's now, we are now proud for, the nilchamim bega'ava al artzenu.
Wait, let me just translate. We are proud of sort of this, we are proud of our militancy, actually, our militarism, and for our, yes, and these are American Jews talking about Israel's military strength, right?
And they're taking this from the story of Anilevich.
Yeah.
And the Polish people doing the same now. They also justify what they are doing now from the Holocaust, from this place. And this is as someone saying in the film, Professor Bilevich saying it. This is the way that the politics use today. Everyone uses for his narratives what was happening before.
Well, what you're getting at, and again, more power to you in terms of, you took a very specific story. It's very specific, Jewish Muranow, and yet the way you directed, wrote, filmed it, asked these universal questions about how long can being a victim serve you? What does that do for the human condition to always be a victim? And what are the lessons that one takes? The Jews who were victimized, it's still extraordinary, heartbreaking every moment to think about. It's unfathomable. But what does one do with that? Is that an identity? Is victimhood an identity? And I would say in our very current political moment globally and intellectually, this is this is actually where we are, where being a victim has a kind of, it's actually very, in my view, very Christian. It's sort of sanctified. And that you're raising a lot of questions about that, because as long as you're a victim, then your righteous anger, your righteous, your nationalism, all these things are justified because you were victimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the film, again, it's particular, very and wonderfully particular about a beautiful neighborhood, Muranow, which was the heart of Jewish Warsaw, but the ideas and what it makes us think about are really larger. And that's, I hope that doesn't sound like I'm diminishing. It just makes you grapple and think about all these other questions. And one of the reasons why the film is so powerful. What did you make, and not to, I mean, he's a wonderful guy, Matan Shefi, but what do you make about sort of this is certain Israeli phenomenon right now of returning to Europe, and particularly to these post-genocidal societies? Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, he's not alone, Matan Shefi. There, you can find Israelis throughout Europe today, in Berlin.
Yes, but he's a minority that's coming back to Muranow, and especially because, not because the yogurt is, cheaper, or the cola. So he went there from his own principles, and it's very interesting. It's very, I like it, by the way,
Yeah.
I was just been to the premiere in Muranow, and they were asking me about my family. And then I told them about my family, that my grandmother was analphabetic. She couldn't read and write. We were very, very poor family. And the baker from this film, Black and White, is my grandfather. He was working in a bakery. And now, like 2 generations after, my cousin is a doctor, and everyone, we came to, I told them, it's almost like the war, the tragedy, took us out from the, I don't know, the 15th century to where we are now. It's for our family, if I'm looking at it this way, we're in a much better place, maybe if we were staying over there. So this is the way that life goes on. But for Matan, I still feel I'm sure for him, but also when I'm going over there, I feel something that I cannot explain about this place, that I feel it's like a part of me in some way.
Yeah.
And there also this something that's the Zionist movement had to do, and to erase the past, to erase the language, to erase this culture, just to make this new Jew figure,
Yeah.
the new one. This was what the film, by the way, Praise the Lard is talking about. This trying to make a new Jewish,
Right.
which I think wasn't successful, didn't succeed.
Right.
And I'm having some, gaguim to the place that I didn't, to the people that I never met.
Right. So you have, I think in Yiddish, all of a sudden, Bengshaft, you have longings for a past that wasn't your own. But that's again, that's that idea of you can talk about ghosts, right? Or you can talk about ghosts as dreams in the subconscious. I mean, how is it that you, right, Israeli born, kibbutznik, probably Shomer Hatzair, right, a left-wing kibbutz if they're raising pork. I know that from other kibbutzim that I love. But here you have this subconscious connection to this place. And that's, you're not, a ghost isn't in you, but there's something about history that you can't erase history. And I'm a historian. That's what I tell my students, you can't erase. And a mature society can grapple with its past. A mature society can look at the layers, like in your film. A mature society, mature people can say, who lived here before? What happened to them? What did they do? And it doesn't mean if I live there now, don't have a right to live there, depending on the context. But the question has to be asked, because the past will raise its head. It just does, like the subconscious, and it could be in the form of ghosts. I think we spoke about this, the idea of ghosts or demons. This is deeply embedded in Central and East European society. So it didn't surprise me one bit that people feel that they hear voices, that they see flashes of light. It actually makes entire sense to me. The folklore of East European Jewry, which is so deep and rich, is filled with stories of demons, shedim in Hebrew, exorcisms. The Hasidic Rebbeim of the 18th century had a lot of incantations to get rid of, demons in people's body. The whole idea of the Dybbuk, so famous by Ansky, the great Yiddish folklorist and ethnographer. So when I say it didn't surprise me, it felt so natural a way to tell your narrative. And I commend you on that. I do have one question about the way the film starts, and you don't exactly pick up on it later, which is with the artist who is creating these kind of plaster photographic fragments of headstones and then burying them. How big a project was that? And I'm just curious, you didn't pick up on it later. I'm just curious because it's a very unique form of memorializing the dead. I've seen, there are all these permanent memorials all over Europe, big things in Berlin and placards here and the stumbling blocks, the cobblestones, but this is a different method of memorialization. How did you meet her and what did you think about that project?
I met her just, when I was talking to Beata Chamatrowska, the one that said the expert. She's also in the film, Beata.
Yeah.
Stacho Muranow. She's the creator of Stacho Muranow, this place of community center. And she wrote the book. And she was telling me about Patrizia Dolway. And I met Patrizia. And she's very, very interesting person, very deep. And this is not the only thing that she's doing. She was dealing with bringing back the one tree that was remained from the ghetto, the Mirabelle tree, and she's the one that did this project, and then now they planted in the ground a tree, and she was talking about this was like she's understanding what I'm looking for. Because she was just taking something and she put it in the ground and she wanted to melt into the ground and like to make this connection between the past and from today. And for people that doesn't have nothing there's no house and we don't know where the bodies are. So she's doing like a metaphor that is so beautiful for me. That's what I was thinking was beautiful. And she's doing it a lot. She has a PhD in something else. She's a very busy person, but she is a very good artist the way I see it. And I'm asking people if they're going there to Muranow or Warsaw at all, and they want to do something like this for the memory of their family. I think this is one of the best ways and the most beautiful way to take a picture of someone from your family, to put it on this plaster and to make some, ceremony, to put it in the ground, to melt it into and this is, I think it's beautiful, just beautiful. And, this in the film, you must end it somewhere and you cannot. So this is why she's one time, but I think the way you remember her, like, because she's opening the film, just saying that it doesn't matter how long you're in the film, but what you're doing, and she's doing something beautiful. It's very interesting.
No, it was absolutely beautiful, and also, I mean, this is me. I have a bit of a problem with the large memorial culture that's taken over European cities. And I mean, that's a separate topic for us. I'm not going to deal with it here. Because what it means is, and there's a new book now, you know, everyone loves dead Jews, right? A new book by Dara Horn, an American writer. So when you travel through Europe, you know, everywhere you go, there are these huge memorials, I guess I am talking about it, reminding you that Jews are dead. And as a living Jew, I find that deeply problematic. And what she's done is honor the dead. But to say, I'm going to give them the burial they didn't get. You know, there's nothing, every culture requires you to bury the dead, leaving a corpse on a battlefield, leaving a corpse on the side of the road where birds carrion can use it as carrion. This is forbidden in every culture. So she's saying, I'm going to honor the dead by burying them and returning them, you know, in Hebrew, me'afar le'afar, from dust to dust. And I found it incredibly powerful. That's why I wanted to mention it. I think it's a fantastic way to open. And as you said, it was beautiful. It was quite a brilliant, to me, a brilliant project. And I was just curious about where she was going with it.
No, she's doing it a lot, and this is really beautiful. By the way, are you talking about, I've been there for once, and someone was, שיפץ את הבית. Someone was making a,
oh, she renovated.
Someone renovated, not her.
Right.
And I took and I found these pieces. This is the blocks. That's, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But you can see what this neighborhood built of.
Right.
So this is the material of this neighborhood, and you can see, like, you know, this black. You can see wood. You can see this black, like זכוכית, and you can see so many things in it.
Glass, colored glass.
And ופחם, and this is the remains of this neighborhood, of this life, this culture, and everything in these blocks that people here. This is the side of in the house. That people still live there. And if you have your good imagination, you can just think of also the bodies that were in it, just in these rubbers that were taking. And so this is for me the microcosmos of this neighborhood, of this story that's into these walls now.
So you managed as a filmmaker to create a sort of visual archaeology of Muranow.
Yes.
In which the past is layered and the past has a voice, and the present, a healthy present, needs to recognize that. So I hope many people will see your film, Chen. I know that I will teach it. You heard it here. I will teach it, and I look forward to your other work. Can you give us a little bit of a hint about what you're working on now?
I'm working now about the story of an old lady that was born in Muranow, and she's an Israeli. She's a poet, and she's writing about life in Poland, about life today. Most of all, she's looking for love. She wants to live her days until the end as the much בחיות הכי גבוהה שהיא יכולה, כאילו.
As full a life as she can possibly live.
As she can, and she's with animation also when it's dealing with poems, you know, her poems are giving us her thoughts, and we might go back to film in Muranow, the place that she was born. You got stung.
I hear it. You got stung by the bee of history. Sorry.
Yeah, might be when you're saying it like that. Yeah.
Well, that's how I view it. Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and to congratulate you on an extremely thoughtful, beautiful film, beautiful cinematographically and otherwise. And I want to tell our audience that I hope you will tune in to many of the other films that we're showing. The film festival is alive and well. through November 21st. We have many other talkbacks with talented directors, actors, and screenwriters. And we also have an opportunity for you to discuss films in a more informal setting. So please visit the website, and please make sure, if you haven't already screened Muranow, that you screen it again or you screen it for the first time. And I think this webinar will enrich your understanding of what the director and screenwriter Chen Shelach wanted to do. So thank you so much. Good night to you, Chen, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Good night.
Good night.